me about, some of the issues that residents have stopped by my house and told me about. So I wanted to make sure that we were able to address those issues. We have different department heads from the city to be able to address those specific issues. But before we get started, I'd just like for us to stand to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are going to get started with our code enforcement department. I asked code enforcement to be here because, and not just District 3, but in the city of Riviera Beach, there are properties that have been neglected. There have been properties that are neglected, but maybe to no fault of the resident. The city of Riviera Beach has numerous alleyways that are either cluttered, and we need to figure out how to best address those issues. When it comes to code enforcement, that can be anything from cars on the side of the road that are not registered, that are bringing blight to the city. There could be all different types of issues in terms of what happens for code enforcement. So right now, I'm going to bring up Ms. Bostic. Yes, you can sit here. And she's going to provide some information about code enforcement. How do you call the city if there's an issue? What's the process? A lot of times residents say, you know, I called so-and-so, but I couldn't get anybody. I called this and so we want to be able to make sure that when you address these issues or whatever issue you have with the city, that you know the right department to call, whom to call, so that you can get your issues rectified. So now we'll have Ms. Bostic to talk about code enforcement.
Testing. Good afternoon, Cheryl Bostic, Code Administrator for the City of Riviera Beach. I would like to go over the process for code enforcement. If you have a complaint or concern, how you can put that complaint or concern into record. You can call the code enforcement line through 561-882-3505, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The staff will take your information down of the location of where the complaint is. That complaint will be addressed and transferred over to the code office that is assigned to your district. Once that complaint has been put into record, the officer will go out and investigate your complaint within the 24 hours. If there is a violation found, the inspector will initiate a notice of violation either by sending it certified mail, regular mail. They could either put a posting on your door or place a sign in your yard or that yard of the complaint, and that starts our process. We give the residents or the property owner 30 days minimum to correct some violations. If it's a health and safety issue, we do not allow the 30 days, but we start our initial complaint with 30-day process. Once that process has been ran through for the 30 days, there's another reinspection provided to the resident. Once that inspection has been completed, if they're not in compliance, our next step is to proceed to our magistrate hearing. Our hearings are held every third Thursday of the month, of each month at 9 a.m. here at the event center. We've changed our location from City Hall from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. to now actually 10 o'clock to 2 p.m. So if one receives a notice of hearing, they will report here and they could present their side and the city will present their side. Once the magistrate hears both sides of the complaint, they will render their findings. This finding could be from 20 days, 60 days, 90 days. So if you don't see anything happening, it doesn't mean that we haven't done anything. It just means that the process may take a little bit longer or the respondent have been granted a little bit additional time. If they do not comply with that time frame, the code office is to go back out, do another reinspection, and at that point, the city could issue a lien against the property. Those liens will stay on the property until the property is brought into compliance or until the residents or the property owner requests for a reduction. But those reductions will only be granted if the property is brought into compliance. If you have a complaint that's pertaining to a vehicle that's on the street, the code department will refer that over to the police department where they could ticket, tag it, or tow it. If it's in their property, within the sidewalk to the property owner's yard, code enforcement have a process where we could place an orange sticker on the property, or we could send a standard notice of violation. If the property owner has received an orange sticker on that vehicle, we will notify the property owner that they must remove the vehicle, or code enforcement will initiate another step and have it towed through the police department. If you see a vacant lot that needs to be cut, please contact our office and we will place an orange sign on the lot that lets you know that we've seen the lot is overgrown. Once we notify the property owner and they do not cut it within 10 days that we request they cut it, we have outside contractors that we notify to give us a quote, and then we will initiate the contractor to go out and cut those lots for us. If you see a vacant house that needs to be boarded and secured, please definitely let us know if it has not already been boarded and secured. We have a process where we will either contact the building official to post it for being unsafe, and that's a different process, or code enforcement will initiate if it's a one-door window, we have an outside contractor that we can notify to board up that structure as well. Please do not hesitate to contact code enforcement. You can contact our office through our phone. You can contact our office through our email, which is codecompliance@rivierabeach.org. You can fax us through 561-882-3513. And again, you can contact our office at 561-882-3505. Please do not hesitate to contact our office and we'll be able to assist you with any complaints you may have.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bostic. I wanted to say for the public, Councilwoman Lanier, that's me. My phone number is 561, my city phone, 561-268-3378. If you have any issues in regards to anything in the city, I will try and make sure that you get to the right department. Ms. Bostic, people have called me and said that there's a house that's down the street from me, and it's abandoned. You know, we don't know who the property owner is. It's growed up. It's making the street look bad. What is the first step that they take to be able to get that remedied?
Again, they can contact our office and we can let them know if we've already seen it.
Provide the number again for the public.
Sure, the number would be 561-882-3505. If they contact that number, the staff would take the complaint in, they log it down, they give it to the inspector who's assigned to that district. That inspectors to go out and place an orange sign in the yard. So they should look for that sign to be placed on any vacant home. It should be placed on the property. That lets you know that we've been there.
Okay. Any members of the public, do you want to ask any questions in regards to code enforcement while we have code enforcement here? Come on up.
Hi.
How you doing?
Okay, my question is, first of all, thank you for your service, okay?
You're welcome.
My question is, I know that we are like 80% around, or 60% of between 60 and 80% of rent, and the rest of we are town. My biggest theme is, on the street, we constantly have people But I think more or less, they need to be worked a little bit more. Because I don't know whether the process is that you all put a citation, I know previously you all would spread with some orange paint or whatever. But that is not relieving what is constantly being done in our city.
Where your mask at, man?
As a homeowner, it does not just make my house or anybody else's house, it makes the whole street look bad. So I really do want you all to work on it. To work on that a little bit more. Because for that to constantly keep happening, a good example. Thank you for cleaning up that house when you have it done, because we know that house was this house. So I thank you for doing that. Right there in that yellow house, when you ride by this people, trash is just thrown out everywhere. Is it any way that you all can send out notices or letters to let the residents know that, okay, prior to whatever your pickup date is, you are not supposed to put anything out there unless there's 2 days prior. You say this is, I think it's on
Yes,
Friday,
24 hours prior to.
Thursday or Wednesday, right?
Correct. It's 24 hours prior to your pickup.
They start from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and you know, this is just unacceptable. Nowhere else that I see all of this portrayed like this in Maine. It's because they got another thing too that I have too. Over here on 28th Street there, all of those apartments over there, they are derelict apartments. And I always say that some parts of this city look like a third world country. Over in that area, there are two garbage, mattress, and everything, you know. The people just don't get out. So I really would like you all to
If,
be a little bit strict.
if you can give us a location, because we are dealing with an issue with our waste management and our residents putting out trash on different days off schedule. That is one thing we're trying to rectify. We do leave door hangers. We spray the pile. Sometimes the tenants are evicted and the sheriff comes and they put them out whatever day it is. Unless we have been informed that they're putting them out, we try to speak to the landlords and advise them, don't put out stuff any day you want. There are your schedules. But when the trash company comes through, they are not raking up sometimes. The residents are steady putting them out. Please, if you have a location, Ms. Bram, just, if it's on your street particular, we will be able to come out. Yes, ma'am.
And then too, we talked about streets and stuff as well. We have a lot of big trucks and stuff that keep coming down in the residential area. And we had a pothole over there, and I think somebody else, called and
Those things, Ms. Graham, if you could definitely give us a call.
Miss Brown, go to the mic so that the people you see the people not hearing you. Go to the mic.
They want you on the mic.
Can you hear me now? So, the big trucks, they're integrated into the residential area.
Yes.
I'm quite sure Ms. Foster, you heard about that.
Yes, ma'am.
And not only that, they're tearing up our roads. And not just our roads, but our streets. Because some of these streets here with the asphalt, they are already given away anyway. And when you constantly have those big trucks coming down the street, that's more wear and tear on the road. So I would appreciate it that perhaps that,
I'm not sure what code enforcement can.
you all have to do your job as well. Call them and let them know. We can only do
Yes. You're welcome. I'm not really sure what code enforcement can do about the semi trucks coming down the road unless they're parking in front of a resident. Then, that, again, anything on the street, we will refer to the traffic department, which is the police department. So if you have an issue with semi parking or coming in your neighborhoods, I believe that we have the chief here and his staff that they can address that if we have a particular street or a resident that's bringing the semi trucks home, where we can address it through that process. If it's in their yard, of course, code enforcement will address it through a notice of violation about bringing commercial vehicles into a residential area. As far as the potholes on the street, if you could give that location to Mr. Bailey, who's over Public Works, perhaps they can get those streets taken care of. But if you have anything pertaining to code enforcement, we will look into the garbage along with waste management and Public Works to see what we can do as far as addressing that situation, Ms. Brown.
Go to the mic so that the people in the public can hear you too.
On the street there, on 9th Street, it's right up in that area where the Seventh-day Adventist Church is, and he's an elderly gentleman. His wife passed away. But right in the back of his house, there, maybe Mr. Developmental will come and take a look at that. In the back there is these tall, tall trees, and sometimes with the wind and whatever blows, it knocks out that power and stuff. But those trees there have been there for centuries, and they are completely overgrown. So I was calling to, to see what could be done. He is an elder, and he lives in the home by himself. So see what we can do. I think Ms. Brown, you might know the gentleman. He lives in that green and white house next to Miss Ada. Oh, Mr. Mark, that's his name.
So Ms. Bram, you can share the address with us?
Huh?
Can you share the address with us?
Do you know his address?
No, not often. It's on 9th Street. But his name is Mr. Mark.
It's in the 1600 block.
That is in 1600.
Okay. I think I know which house you're speaking of. We're taking a list of residents that are senior citizens also. We're compiling a list of the residents so we can get some assistance for some of them. So I'll be happy to put their name on the list and see if there's some assistance that maybe collectively our departments can do to assist them to rectify some of the complaints or code violations.
I know his name is Mr. Mars, and he lives in that 1600 block. I think about 4 houses down.
Before you Avenue U.
You Avenue, right down on that same side where the church is. It's 4
Yes, ma'am.
houses down.
Yes.
It is a green, white. The base of it is white, but the can is green. The house is very manicured.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
must say that.
It's the trees in the back.
It's all those trees that are just overgrown.
Okay. Thank you. We will take a look in that. You're welcome.
Councilperson Lanier, if I
Yes.
may, with regards to code compliance, I think one of the important elements for everyone to know that the intent behind code compliance is, in its very name, is compliance. We don't want to take punitive action to correct issues in the property, so we try to work with property owners as well as tenants to cure some of those issues. We did have a conversation with the board prior to COVID about looking to bring some policies to the board for consideration that will give us a little bit more flexibility and provide for quicker compliance when it comes to some of the properties that are in our community that have been problematic. One of the other things that we want to bring to the board during the first of the year is addressing a nuisance abatement program. Right now, our nuisance abatement program has little to no teeth. And I can tell you from my past experience in other agencies, we have taken aggressive steps through nuisance abatements and have cured a lot of those issues with elements that create for problems in our neighborhoods. And so those are things that are going to be coming before you on the board to look to make some policy modifications that effectively will allow for some of those issues that folks call on and say, why is it taking so long? We're going to hopefully get the board to support speeding up the steps so we can gain quicker compliance as it relates to code compliance. But we do want to work with folks, but we need to know when those issues are problematic in the neighborhood so we can put staff on that and move through the process as quickly as the process allows for us to.
Okay, thank you. I also want to say, Ms. Bram brought up the issue of these big trucks. Before I became a council member, I was coming to City Hall because I was trying to figure out, I live at 13th Street, Federal Garden. I was trying to figure out, and right down the street is the UPS and some of everything else. Trying to figure out how do we get these trucks to stop coming down 13th Street. And with that issue, we are still now working on, before the pandemic hit, the city and some traffic engineers have designed 4 or 5 options for 13th Street. We wanted to bring that to you, not tonight, but in another forum where we can have a conversation about that main 13th Street. We put speed bumps on it, maybe 2 or 3 councils ago. We've tried posting speed limits, but it just doesn't, you know, at 6 o'clock in the morning, them trucks wake me up. I mean, they are huge 20 and 40-ton trucks. And sometimes the house shakes because these trucks are that heavy. So what we want to do was we wanted to bring to the public, and especially people who live in Federal Garden, and especially the ones on 13th Street, how do we address that issue? There are about 5 different variations that include everything from roundabouts to one-way streets to whatever the case may be, but there's about 5 options. And probably in January, we're going to have another meeting here so that you can tell us and we can discuss what is the best option for 13th Street. So I finally got to the point where we've had some traffic engineers to actually work on the problem, to look at it, and to give us some options. So I wanted to share that with you because it appears that it's not just 13th Street. You know, these trucks just come and they just come in these neighborhoods and they come whenever they want, however late they want, and they make it, the next thing you know, then here comes other trucks because now they done made this their route. So those are issues that we're going to address because I know for myself, this has been an ongoing issue with me, you know, for the past 3 or 4 years. So I'm happy to say that we've gotten to the point where we do have some options to be able to share it with the public so that we can get some feedback on how we're going to fix this problem. Are there any other residents that want to address any code enforcement issues that you may have? Come on up to the mic, sir.
Yes, sir. I have 4 code officers. One work in 4 different districts. The city is split into 4s. If you can imagine the Blue Heron Boulevard being the center of the pie and Barack Obama being the middle. We have one in this side of the district. We have one on the other side of Blue Heron. We have one on the other side, Monroe Height area, which goes from Blue Heron to Seal Beach Road to Garden Road. We have one on the south side of the street of Blue Heron to Garden Road to Barack Obama. So you split them into the 4s, and those are the areas they cover, as well as Singer Island, and that's out west.
So you have, and you have something that you can check to make sure they are actively doing the job. Do you have somebody that comes behind to see if they are spraying trash out or different situations throughout the city?
Again, I have 4 code officers, 1 in each district, and there is now a field supervisor that has been appointed to. I have received a field supervisor who's been appointed for the last, I believe 2 months ago. So I do have assistance.
I think I stay with CPA for that, and we do have issues.
Okay, I won't answer to that part. If you have a complaint, you can call our office and we can see if we can address your complaint.
I'm just learning, but now I know you are the person in charge of other people, so
Yes, yes, sir.
they need to do their job.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question before you leave. What types of violations do you see?
Trash piles, junk, there's 2 trash piles, one day on the corner business, one day, I know tomorrow's trash day, I put out my head because they come tomorrow. Suitcases, like little toys, abandoned houses, or houses that appear to be abandoned, you know what I mean, because the window broken, like, I can see, I've been there for 2 years, and I've had private appraisals trying to see that if had this been fixed, how much I would have been valued. So I do know that you're very important. You know, so
And you're on this 1500 block of 9th Street? You're on 10th Street, this 1600 block?
1652 10th Street.
Okay.
I'm in that little area right there. So yeah, that little neighborhood right there, I see. And the trucks do, I know it's not your code enforcement, but they do ride down, I see.
Yeah.
It's a constant.
Yeah, and what's happening more and more is that the trucks are making specific streets their route, basically. So, you know, what we want to do is, when we're looking at 13th Street, we're looking at the entire city in terms of trying to curb these trucks from coming in residential neighborhoods. I mean, you can see a truck every now and then that comes through, that's fine. But what happens is that once one comes through, then the next thing you know, it becomes their route. So what we want to do and what we're going to do is that we're going to address that issue, because we don't want it to be 13 streets all over City Riviera Beach, where trucks just come in specific areas and just come through there, and that becomes, because, you know, the federal government basically has guidelines that these trucks that are over 20 and 40 tons, that these type of trucks are supposed to use the highway system. They're supposed to use, if they're coming down 13th Street, they're supposed to come up Australian, hit Blue Heron, and then get to 95. They're not supposed to come down Australian and go down 13th Street to Congress, then come up to Blue Heron, then go to 95. But it's shorter because, and I figured out what it was. If they come down 13th Street, they avoid all of the school zones. So they hit 13th Street, so they avoid that school zone. You know, coming up there by Kennedy, if you're coming up Blue Heron. So they take a different route so that they can, number one, avoid school zones. And number two, if they think that it's shorter, but they don't have to go through all these lights, they just come through the neighborhood. So a lot of times, you know, like I said, when one truck does it, then it becomes a situation where everybody else follows them and they just kind of come through. But they made 13th Street a straight shortcut in terms of coming off of Australian. Instead of going down Australia or going down 8th Street, going down Martin Luther King, they come up 13th Street to go either way.
Yeah.
So, yes, that is something that we certainly are addressing.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
My question is, it's not code compliance, but what about this train over here?
What's train?
This train is 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the
Blue
morning.
Heron and Barack Obama?
Yes,
The main train.
yes.
Well, I can tell you that we've had conversations about creating, I believe the term is a quiet zone, but we have to have a sealed corridor that allows for some improvements that would have to happen to, in essence, facilitate the conductor not blowing the horn, but they still have the right to blow the horn if they think it's appropriate. The board did discuss this matter. We're going to come back with improvements, looking at landscape improvements, looking at signalization, looking at each of the intersections to try to address that. But I can tell you one of the most challenging parts of dealing with a train operation is that they will invariably always say they were there before the community, because the rails are on plats dating back to the 1800s as how they used to move cargo. And so they have some prescriptive rights, and then they do have a strong state and federal lobby. But there's some things that we can do as the city, but it's at our cost to do that, to try to address that. But the board was briefed on that, and there is going to be subsequent conversations about it, because the biggest challenge that we have is not just the noise element, but cutting our community off. There's been many of times, I think all of us have been stuck at the intersection, and it splits our community in half. And so if there's a public safety issue where we need to run additional apparatus and equipment over to the other part of our community, we can't get there. And so there's a big public safety concern with regards to that, but that's something that's on the forefront of this council's to-do list for staff.
Well, my question is, and it makes me think, especially if it's coming from the north to go to south, it passes Palm Beach Gardens. And my question is, at that time of the morning, is it the same rule that applies? Because I know that they would not, because you're gonna come from, and it's residential areas over there. And I'm saying that this train it's more now than ever. It's like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And I'm saying, well, how much cargo do you have to transport?
Right.
And people have to go to, and I'm not talking about I'm talking about it's a constant thing.
Well, and one of the challenges that we have, obviously, with the Port of Palm Beach, they move a lot of product and a lot of cargo. Anything that gets transported to the Bahamas invariably ends up coming out of the Port of Palm Beach. And so we do see a lot more of the train traffic in our community as opposed to other communities. But we have to look if gardens and other communities to the north or south have sealed corridors and made those improvements, so where in fact that doesn't occur, because here in about a year or so, you're going to have Brightline also that's going to be buzzing through our community as well. So that's another train.
They can come through quietly. Okay, thank you.
Come to the mic here. Bright light. We know that it is coming through. Are we designated? I know some places, like down in Lake Worth down there, they were, in their meetings, they was talking about that quiet zone. We are only a little 8-mile stretch of territory here. So is it possible that somebody can I would say meet, because I think back there in the day, we were talking about this train, how it brings hardship upon our little community here. So, and we know that Brightline is coming through. Can some of the officials get with FCC to see whether or not that we can establish a certain time frame to have a quiet zone?
To that point, yes, we're working with, and Ms. Jacobs, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you've been involved in this project. We are looking to work with Treasure Coast on this, as this was a matter that was presented, and they've done some of the research, because there is some research and some initial legwork that has to be done, and then physical infrastructure improvements. But I believe that there has been conversations with Treasure Coast to look into that. Ms. Jacobs, do you have anything else to add?
Sure. So, Ms. Bram, there was like, it's really a paradox, because in the process of trying to figure out a way to come up with quiet zones, Brightline has, because of the speed of the train, there are also safety issues. So you're caught like in between, because even though we know we can't prevent Brightline from coming through, because it is going to happen, you have to figure out a way where you can balance the two, because if the train horn is needed in order to alleviate safety issues, how do you ask for the train horn not to exist? You see what I'm saying?
Okay, within that time frame, we know, I think someone touched upon this. It is certain times of the day that the train comes through. We stay on this side for almost a good 15 to 20 minutes, waiting for the cargo to pass. If it's some way that as officials, that, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, we can prevent these trains, but if we as a city had a time schedule frame of when FCC transportations on these rail cars, we would know basically what particular hour time frame that we as a city can expect the most hideous noise and time travel for these trains here. Because sometimes they were just coming back to back. So that is something that I feel as if that with FCC, whoever represents that you all can ask them to pull a time schedule for the trains. And therefore we would know that at this particular time we can expect a heavy load. This particular time we can expect to be held up.
Well, and Mr. Bailey can speak to this probably better than anybody can. There's a consultant that is working with Treasure Coast that's gonna work along with Brightline, because it has been done in other areas where
That's
they
right.
actually do
It has.
have quiet zones. So it is in the process of being worked on. So we should probably be able to come up with some type of answer like in the next couple of months, maybe after the holidays, to see just where they are on it, because that is an issue. But at the same time, we were trying to come up with barriers where we could actually come up with some type of barriers, because we know that Brightline is coming, and we know what unfortunately usually comes along with Brightline because of how fast those trains go. And for some reason, whatever reason it is, we run into situations where we underestimate the train and the impact of the train and the speed of the train. So we are cognizant of that, and those two issues exist simultaneously, so it is on the radar to be addressed.
Okay.
And we can certainly look into the scheduling aspect. That may be somewhat challenging, but I know even, for instance, for drawbridges, that's based on Homeland Security and the Coast Guard and their specific increments that those drawbridges come up. And so I don't know if there is some type of schedule that I think we as residents know just by virtue of getting stuck there enough times what time it is, but we can see if we can find out. If we know that the peak travel is going to be between 2 and 5, at least that's information that we can communicate to the residents that there is going to be, train traffic there until we make some of the improvements and see what happens on our side. So we'll do some research on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let us thank you, Ms. Bostic. Again, her number, code enforcement issues, 561-882-3505. You are, wherever you are in the city, it doesn't matter. If you're having any issues in terms of code enforcement, that is the number that you call. Thank you so much. We appreciate you giving us that information, Ms. Bostic.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Mr. Terrence Bailey, who is our Director of Public Works. I want Mr. Bailey to provide us some information in regards to public works of the city. People need to know where to call if there are issues. You can say, I'm coming down Blue Heron in Australia and it looked like this grass is overgrown over here. This is our street. It's not a residential area. How do people who ride through our city, us as residents, how do we address those issues? How do we know who to call if we're coming down Blue Heron somewhere and we see something like a lot of trash or a lot of paper? Who do we call to address those issues in the city? So I wanted the Public Works Director to, number one, provide us information about what Public Works does for the city. And then you can kind of tell us about how those issues are addressed. Thank you.
All right, again, my name is Terrence Bailey, the Public Works Director for the city. Public Works is comprised of 5 divisions. We have engineering and administration, streets, grounds, stormwater, fleet, and facilities. So in those 5 divisions, engineering and administration oversee the majority of your capital construction projects. There have been many road projects over the last few years. As the residents know, we're embarking on a reimagining Riviera Beach with a number of new buildings at multiple sites throughout the city. That is housed and sort of coordinated in our engineering and administrative component. To your point, streets and grounds is the primary thing that people think of when they think of Public Works. That is the maintenance crews that cut the medians, trim trees, pick up trash in the road. And as you mentioned, if anyone sees anything, we request that you go to the city's website and use our work order system called Q Alert. But if you'd like a phone number to call, you can always call Public Works' main line at 561-845-4080. That is the main line for Public Works. Again, it's 561-845-4080. And our staff will be able to route you into the right direction for any questions you may have. Obviously, as I said, we also have the stormwater division inside of Public Works. So they do all of the maintenance on all of the canals and control structures. We have a large vac truck, excuse me, to keep the stormwater system clean and things of that nature. Typically, nobody thinks about the stormwater crew until it's either about to rain or hurricane's coming, or it's rained and there's standing water, and those are the guys you see come out, jump in, waist-deep water, or I should say knee-deep water. If it's waist-deep, we've got other problems. Knee-deep water to clear grass or debris off of a drain so that the drain can go forward. Additionally, we obviously have the fleet department in Public Works. Fleet is responsible for about over 260 rolling assets. It's like any other mechanic shop. Fleet's responsible for the purchase, the distribution, and disposal of vehicles. They also do the lion's share of the maintenance on most of the vehicles in the city. Last but not least, we have facilities. As you know, we have many facilities. The majority of our facilities were built in the 1970s. I won't go into all of the fun that we have keeping these facilities operational and up to standard, but there's a small team of individuals who are changing lights, changing air filters. All the same maintenance you do at your home have to be done at a large scale for all of the buildings. That team also includes all the janitorial service. Now with COVID, that team has probably seen the most change with enhanced, increased cleaning to the tune of wiping down every doorknob every 30 or 45 minutes, and how we've had to change to try to make our environment as absolutely safe as possible for our employees. And that is a priority of the management team, and a lot of that burden falls on our facilities group that is really stepping up in this current environment to keep our employees safe. And that is generally the operations of Public Works.
Members of the public, any questions you have about Public Works, please come up to the mic. Yes, I would just like to say on MLK, we finally got MLK looking like a good highway. My complaint is that I want where to take Dan Callaway area along that strip there. I want that to be continuously cut, because just recently you all cut it, and it had not been cut in months and months and months. It sits on that corridor there as a beautification zone in the same area where that community center at Barack Obama Highway. All of that corridor there should be maintained in its uniqueness. Not to cut one section of that highway and leave the other side looking like a disaster. So that is the commitment that I am asking and looking for, that when you all cut that roadway, it's nothing to cut that little strip there where Callaway Center is there. It's nothing to cut it. So we would like to see that cut, so that when we pass that highway, we want the beautification that is kept. And Stony Brooks, while I'm here, let me just tell you highlight about Stony Brooks. That is totally being remodeled. I was there today, and it is becoming a reality for this city here. And I want the council board to know, this council board, as well as the previous council, and everybody that tried to work to make that a part of our community. Because along that corridor there, everything is on there. So try to keep those areas cut, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Are there any other questions in regards to Public Works? We want for you to be able, give that number again, please.
Yes, the main line for Public Works is 561-845-4080.
And what Mr. Bailey was talking about in terms of key alert, I know a lot of residents, some people, are not comfortable in terms of computers and going online, but if you are, or you can get someone, it'll be probably much easier when you put your complaint in, because then it is written down, it is a public record of your complaint. I know a lot of times when, we give you these phone numbers, I'm just telling you now, members of the public, residents who live here, it is best to always get things in writing. So when you are or have any complaints about what is not happening with the city, put it in writing. So that number one, people know exactly what you're talking about, and number two, there is something in writing that says that this is what is happening on my street, in my city, whatever the case may be. But you can go online and use that Q alert system. But if you just want to write a handwritten note, take it to the city clerk's office, so that your complaint, your request for information, any of that is something that is in writing, and it will be a part of the public record. Is there any other questions for Public Works?
I have one,
Oh, go
Shirley.
ahead.
Terrence, can you share with the group what you know about the quiet zone issue with the trains and the horns?
Sure. So once Brightline started in conversation probably 5 years ago, every community in Palm Beach County was extremely concerned about the safety of the high-speed train. I sit on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the main organization that oversees dollars spent on transportation issues in the county, and it was a hot topic for years on how we were going to provide safety for residents as the train came through. Through that organization, research was done, and the ability to initiate a quiet zone was the best alternative to not have the horns blowing all times of day and night. Currently, the MPO has funding in place and has partnered with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council to where, in essence, once the city indicates that they would like to initiate the process, all the funds are paid for and all the work is paid for and done by Treasure Coast. They will literally come and meet with us, put a package down that's completed, and someone signs it, and they tell you where to send it, and they facilitate the process. So you'll recall, I believe, 2 months ago, I think it was 2 months ago at the council meeting, we had a presentation from Kim Delaney from Treasure Coast walking us through that process, and I believe there was going to be another subsequent meeting to determine if the council wanted to move in that direction. Ms. Jacobs indicated that it is a balance. You have individuals who don't want to hear the horn because of their quality of life, but then you have safety issues because even with the horn, we have too many individuals who are trying to jump across the railroad tracks and don't make it. So this is the balance that every community has to go through of convenience and quality of life and safety, and we really need to have an in-depth, cogent conversation of where this community is going to fall in that pendulum between those two sort of competing interests. So Ms. Delaney brought the initial amount of information. We have another round to really kind of get into what it is we want and how this is going to affect the lives of our community. In that same conversation, there is what is considered sort of the next level of safety, a closed corridor. A closed corridor is in essence where you put up two walls, metaphysical walls. They may be bushes, they may be fences, they may be, but two barriers to where the only way to cross the tracks is at those railroad crossings where there's a road. This will significantly eliminate the possibility of trespassing and injury in between road crossings. And we've looked into and started the process of research on, okay, well, what does that look like? Right now, if you can imagine a bush or a wall just on the back of curb on the east side of Obama, running 6 or 8 feet tall, running the whole way through the city. It sounds good until it's there, and is that really how we want our community to look? There's obviously pros and cons, and there's gonna take a lot of conversation with the community on, is that the direction we want to go? Again, what kind of community, what is the community gonna look like? What is the safety improvements and benefit to the community for doing it? So these are some pretty tough issues to wrestle with and balance, these two elements as we look to obviously have a great community, a safe community, but not impact the quality of life for the residents who are going to be near this thing that you're going to potentially build.
No, I certainly understand that. I certainly understand the balance. When Brightline first came to Palm Beach County, every day there was a death. Every day there was somebody getting hit with that train because it is not a slow-moving tri-rail. It is going 70 and 80 miles per hour. So my fear is that Brightline train comes to the city of Riviera Beach. I used to cross those tracks going to Suncoast, when Suncoast was over that way, going to school every day. So those train tracks, people drive over them, but those train tracks are, people walk across them all the time. So my biggest fear is that we know the train whistle is a nuisance, but we do not want to put people in danger because, especially at 13th and Barack Obama Highway, when you see the train coming from the port, and then you're like, oh, it's going to catch me. So you drive around it. But if that's a Brightline train, you're not going to make it. It's just not going to happen. So I just want us to caution us so that we understand that even though we have these things that appear to be nuisances, and they are, it is. But we also want to strike that balance that if somebody, coming home late at night and they coming from work and they sleepy and they trying to make it home, that they do hear that train whistle so that they can pay attention and not go across that track and something, catastrophic happens. I just want us to try and strike that balance, and I think that the city employees are doing that. They're trying to strike that balance and making sure that the safety of the residents is definitely the first solution to this problem. We want to make sure that people's safety is what comes first. So I wanted to have that conversation about that, but if not, we're going to move on to our next section. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. We appreciate that. Again, Public Works, the number is 845-561-845-4080. The next person, you just going to take your time. You just going to come up there, huh? Now I'm going to have Developmental Services come first. Okay, that's it. That's right. We're going to do utilities first. We're going to talk about this water. Utility District, I'm going to get to you, I promise. Mr. Nigel, who is, what's Mr. Nigel's last name?
Nigel Grace with Brown and Caldwell.
Come on up, sir. Mr. Nigel Grace works as a consultant with the city of Riviera Beach. And you can sit here, Mr. Nigel, if you want to. And Mr. Nigel is here because we've been, ever since, I've been living in the city all my life. My parents came to the city of Riviera Beach in 1963. And shortly after that, I'm not going to tell you what year, but that's the year I was born. And I've been in this city ever since. And I can remember back in the 80s, 90s, we had the best water in Palm Beach County. But guess what happens? When things are neglected, it starts failing, it starts not doing what it's supposed to do. So we've had some issues of trying to ensure, as Mr. Bailey said about facilities, trying to make sure that we keep what we have up to par. And my mother has told me a long time that if you got something, you have to keep it up if you want it to work. You can't neglect it and expect it still to work. So Mr. Nigel is here because I want him to have a conversation with us about the water quality in the city of Riviera Beach. That was one of my main issues in terms of, I drink water all the time, and I mean, everybody does. I mean, water is life. So we want to be able to not have to buy water, to tell you the truth. We want to be able to be in a position where we can cut on our tap and drink the water. Now, we can drink it now. I drink it sometimes, but it could be better. And now, with some of the new improvements that have happened at the utility district, I'm telling you as a witness, the water is tasting better. Because I know water when I taste it. You can line up 10 bottles of 10 different water companies, and I can tell you which one they are, because I drink them all. So I want to be able to get to the point where I drink the city of Riviera Beach water, and it's gotten a whole lot better, but I want it to get even better. So go ahead, sir.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks. It's certainly my pleasure to be able to address you here. Just one important point of trivia. If I heard you correctly, you were born sometime after 1963. I was born in 1964. So, I've been around about the same time. I think we've been around about the same time. And I think much of the city's water infrastructure also dates back to the 1960s. And that's important. You're looking at infrastructure that's in excess of 50 years old. There's been maybe some light window dressing type improvements done maybe 2-3 decades ago, but fundamentally the plant you have today is the same plant you had 50 years ago, right? But besides the neglect that has accrued over the years, the laws have changed, the regulations that apply to water treatment have evolved significantly. I'm not even sure if you had drinking water regulations in place. I'm not sure that the EPA even existed back then, as a regulating entity for water treatment. So everything has changed. From a hurricane standpoint, the codes have changed, everything has changed, but the water treatment plant is fundamentally the same, right? So it's much more constrained in its ability to keep up with the current times under best of circumstances. When you overlay on top of that the fact that the plant underwent apparently decades of underinvestment in maintaining the infrastructure, there are no controls, and the reliability has eroded to a point that to bring the plant up to a certain level of reliability and performance today, you're going to spend a lot of money, multiple tens of millions of dollars, but you'll still essentially have a 50-year-old technology, right? So over the last 2 decades or so, a lot of treatment facilities in South Florida in particular have evolved to and migrated to membrane technology, which is the current state of the art. It's what Coca-Cola uses to produce desalinated drinking water, right? So whenever you drink bottled water, in all likelihood, unless it's some kind of spring-fed source, you're really getting it from a membrane plant, right? And so this technology really allows each and every resident every time they open the tap to get similar quality water. The city has made a commitment to move towards membrane rather than investing significantly, in a 50-year-old plant to still have 50-year-old technology, just better looking. The decision was made to move to this modern membrane process, everything will be housed within a building like this, much more secure, better quality water for many, many years to come, right? And it provides an effective barrier, not just against the current, things that we concern ourselves about, but even it basically future-proofs the water supply.
And I think that's really important to understand that the city's water plant was built in the 60s. I was born in the 60s, I'm not gonna say when, but that's a long time ago. That's a 50 years plant that's right here at Blue Heron and Barack Obama Highway, which means that not only is the water plant itself 50 years old, the technology in terms of water filtration and in terms of, I learned a lot about how water is processed, basically. And all of these things that you have to do to it to be able for you to drink it when it comes out of the ground. And I learned about what an aqua filter is, that is in where they dig wells in the bottom of the ground as you digging. All of these things, and then you bring the water up to be able to be treated, to be able to drink it. It goes through a lot of processes. And 50 years ago, the process that they have now is nowhere near it. So we really are behind the times in terms of making sure that we can move towards, as Mr. Nigel said, not to spruce up the 50-year-old water plant, but to move towards a whole new water treatment plant itself.
Absolutely.
And Councilperson, to add on to your remarks, it's important to note that the investments that the city has made over the last year has been exponential with regards to moving the needle forward as it relates to a new water treatment plant. There was an acquisition of property that's adjacent to Avenue L that gives frontage onto Blue Heron, and so now we have a larger lot that can accommodate the new plant as well as the public works site. But in August of 2019, we brought in $1 million emergency purchase to the board to address the North Clarifier that treats 7.5 million gallons of water. It is the largest clarifier the city of Riviera Beach has. It is intricate in the treating of the water. That had been down for 5 years. So the largest element to treat the water in the community was down for 5 years. That clarifier is up now. When I asked staff the question of the water that is extracted from the superficial aquifer for the purposes of providing water and going to our plant, with that clarifier being down, only 70% of the water that the city was grabbing was going through the complete treatment process. Now that's 100%. And so we're doing everything in our power as it relates to the staff to make sure that we are making the wise investments. We have had conversations with granting entities, and Ms. Jacobs and her team has put together a grant request for $58 million because we anticipate the capital acquisition cost for a new plant to be roughly about anywhere from $75 to $120 million. So one of the things when folks ask the question about the rate increase, why rate increases are necessary, is because that we realistically only have 5 to 10 years left of useful life on the existing plant that we have. It is cost prohibitive, nor do we want to get in a situation, nor can these other municipalities that are adjacent to us, Seacoast or West Palm, provide the water, the amount of water that our community needs. And so it is imperative that we continue to move forward, and the board took actions last night to approve an authorization for $196,000 to allow for Brown and Caldwell to begin the process of doing the exploration for the purposes of going into the Floridan aquifer to be able to get the brackish water to utilize in the water treatment process. So we're looking forward, but we're also making strategic investments in the plant as it relates to the existing process. And now with that clarifier up, the other two clarifiers can be maintenanced and repaired to be able to improve the quality of water that's being provided in our community. And so the residents probably for the last month or so should see a noticeable difference with regards to the system. A year ago, you had, out of your 27 wells, you had 9 wells that were up and operational. Now, there's 22 out of your 27 wells that are operational. The board authorized additional monies last night to explore all the wells that the city of Riviera Beach has and make a determination as to which wells would be cost beneficial to keep and which wells we should look to close those wells for the purposes of understanding our consumptive use permit. The Water Management District provides for us the ability to pull water out of the aquifer, the surficial aquifer, but based on our community as it grows and based on our use permit, we anticipate that the amount of water needed, we may get to that point where it exceeds our permit by 2025. So when we're moving and we're bringing things before the board and having these discussions, which we're glad to have, and where we're talking about a rate study, is that the last meaningful investment that has happened at that plant was probably 1971, 72. It was built in 1958 when the community was roughly about 13,000 residents. It's 35,000 residents, and we still have the same process in place. So we have borrowed time. So we have to move as quickly and as aggressively as possible, because that is the service that is provided that touches the residents every day, or at least we hope touches the residents every day. So it's something that's critical, and Nigel and Mr. Jonathan Batista have done an exceptional job in helping facilitate us moving the plant forward, so we can hopefully in the next couple of years break ground on a new water treatment plant that we won't have to utilize bottled water in some cases.
Very good.
I wanted to make a, I know we, who's that?
I should clap off of that.
Yeah.
That's very good news.
So Nigel, can you also explain to the audience, we always hear so many different comments about the color of our water and whether or not the water is harmful to us in terms of not being safe to drink.
Yes, the color of the water is not tied to the safety of the water. In fact, most water supplies in South Florida have the same colored tinge. And for many communities, that was a big driver for many of the communities that migrated from lime softening, your current technology, to the current membrane. What the color really is residual leftover organic vegetation matter. That's probably centuries old, right? As you know, the early swamps, the leaves would die, decay, and release those tannins. That color is that residual tannin material. Humic substance is scientific terminology that's used, that's left over from ancient vegetation, right? It's entirely harmless in of itself. However, when you apply chlorine to it, when you talk about disinfection byproducts, that's one of the things that comes from the reaction of chlorine and these tannin materials. So the color is considered an aesthetic nuisance, right? The EPA and the state regulates it as a secondary standard, and what that really means is that there's no public health issue. It's just considered a nuisance. It's an aesthetic issue. Nobody likes to drink water that kind of has a tea color, right? So the state and the feds put some secondary limits on it, but those limits are discretionary and not tied to public health risks.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can take about 2 questions. Oh, Mr. Batista, can you come up? Mr. Jonathan Batista is our acting utilities director. This young man has brought a lot of changes to
city's utility department, and we're hoping that we can move forward, and as Mr. Evans said, aggressively toward our new water plant. Mr. Batista, just kind of give, I mean, when I first went to the water department, I mean, we all know that there's a water department, you know, you drink your water, but there's a lot that goes into how all of this works. So if you can just give me a quick, brief, how does the water come out of my tap? What happens from start to it gets to my tap?
So I'll explain it how when I was in college, I used to work at a Thinkery museum, and I would explain to kids, here's where the water comes from. So I'll do the same thing for us now.
Exactly.
So essentially, going from the very beginning, we talked about how we have the superficial aquifer. All the water at Riviera Beach comes out of the ground.
Explain what an aquifer is.
So an aquifer, you could think of it like a sponge, where underground we have limestone that has pores, and other materials underground like clay, so all sorts of different kinds of rock and things like that store the water within the holes. It's kind of like if you imagine sand and dirt, if it rains, it collects water within that material, and then over time it could dry out. So underground you have massive storage capacity because the ground is able to soak up a lot of the water. So what happens over time is it rains, and essentially the water is filtered through the ground and enters these larger areas underground and is stored in those areas. And from there, the wells are able to go into these larger storage spots so you could pull it out. Now, if it was, let's say, a thick material that doesn't really transmit water very well, like clay, you couldn't really pull it easily. But if it's sandy, that's where the wells do best, because now the water can move easily through that type of material. So essentially, that's how we're pulling water out, is through these porous regions of the ground. And so going from there, we're pulling the water out, and it goes through the pumping system, through the pipes to the water treatment plant. And when it reaches the water treatment plant, it has to go through a series of processes in order for it to get clean. So the water that we're pulling out of the ground is really decent quality water. It doesn't require a whole lot of work. Like, as an example, West Palm Beach has to do a lot of work because they're pulling from lakes and things at the surface.
That's the difference I wanted you to talk about. The water from the city of Riviera Beach is well water. It comes out of the ground, unlike the city of West Palm Beach, who pull their water from lakes and from standing water. So it's a big difference, and that is why our water used to taste so good. It's going to get there because we are pulling our water from wells and not from lakes and streams. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to make that point.
Sure. So because we're pulling from a different source, we have a different treatment process than, let's say, West Palm or another city. And so the basic steps in treating the water before we can drink it is first it has to go through this air stripping process. So what happens is the water passes through these towers that pull gases out, like CO2 and hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide has like a rotten egg smell. CO2 is not necessarily dangerous. You can carbonate your drinks with CO2 and have no problem. But the CO2 reacts with lime and makes it harder to treat the water. So you'd have to use more lime if you didn't have those strippers. So basically it goes to these towers, then it goes to the lime softening units. And the lime softening units is where a big part of the action happens, where the raw water's coming in and we're adding a chemical called lime. And once it hits the raw water, now it's essentially precipitating these solids out. And to explain it in a more basic sense, it's like there's two things coming together and we're taking out what we don't want through this reaction. So if you didn't add the lime, the hardness and the other stuff in the water would just keep going. So you need this chemical to be able to pull these things out of the water. So from there, you have other chemicals that are added, like polymer, to help essentially take these, they're called precipitates, out of the water. So as the lime and polymer are being added, you can almost imagine like a snowball effect, where you have these smaller particles becoming bigger, and then they settle into the bottom of the softeners. And then from there, it's removed into the sludge pits, and the water that was treated and is separated from that sludge goes to the filters. And then from the filters do the obvious job of taking the bigger particles out of the water. And so now you have water that was chemically treated and treated through filters. And from there, it goes to our clear well and our storage tanks and is ready to be pumped into the water mains throughout the city. And then from there, it gets to your faucet. So every home has their own meter and service line. So from these larger mains, they go into these smaller pipes that feed into all the businesses and homes. So that's how we go from the wells to the treatment to the pumps and then finally to the faucets.
I have a question, Jonathan. What is, when you use the word hardness, what does that mean?
So hardness is a term for the concentration of certain minerals in the water, particularly calcium and magnesium. They're essentially things that we need in our bodies to function. If you took away all hardness, you would have a water that's unstable, and I would definitely not recommend you drink it, because in the end, there's a balance when it comes to water. You don't want to strip everything, but you don't want to keep everything either. It's a happy middle ground for what we want to drink.
Very good.
Thank you.
Jonathan, there's a sign that's been posted outside the utility district with regards to some improvements. Can you explain to the public what those improvements will entail?
Sure. So there's two signs out in front of the water treatment plant. One is for the Cardinal Improvements. They're based on two new systems that we want to bring online, the new lime system and the new recarbonation system. With those two systems in place, we will now have an automated process by which to chemically feed our systems. Right now, it's very manual. It's problem prone since these systems have been in place for so long. So we're at the very least trying to get to something that's more advanced, at least in the interim. Also, as part of Cardinal's work, they're pulling a lot of the equipment that's in the North Chemical Building, because anybody who drives on Blue Heron can see that North Chemical Building has a crack in it. And right now we're doing our best to get everything out of there so that we can essentially demolish, at least partially, that building, because right now it's an eyesore and we're trying to get away from it. For the second sign, there's Global Tech, and Global Tech is doing a different set of improvements to help boost how our system operates. They're doing a sodium hypochlorite system, an ammonia system, and really those two systems deal with disinfection. So we've had issues in the past with maintaining residuals throughout our system, like in Gramercy Park, and part of the reason is our systems are manual and there's not a whole lot of control. So with these two new systems, we should be able to maintain a consistent residual easier than before. And then finally, they're adding new flow meters and other monitoring equipment throughout our treatment plant so we can get a very accurate picture in real time of what's happening in the plant. Right now, there's a lot of manual sampling going on. Our meters are not working as well as they could. So if all these improvements, will have a really detailed perspective on what's happening in the plant.
Excellent. Are there any questions for water? Come on up.
I just want to know, the citizens probably want to know, after all of that, when can we start drinking? What's the target?
You can drink
So
it
we can
now.
drink the water again.
I mean,
No, that is what Nigel was speaking of. You can drink the water, Nigel.
Mr. Grace, if you can come up and kind of outline in very simplistic terms with...
Councilman, you right, we really had the best water in Palm Beach County.
yeah.
And I'm gonna jump in here. I don't mean to cut you, sir, because I know y'all gonna get deep. But this is what I want to say. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You want to know why? Because in the time that you've been here, when they hired you all, things are moving. But you don't hear that, do you? We have a new water filtration system, something that is not going to harm the residents. Oh, we're gonna get taxed. Well, who's gonna pay for it? We gotta get real. We have a new water filtration system. Everything can't stay the same. You're talking about 1960. We need change, but we need a new leadership. I'm done. Come on.
Good evening. Real quick question. That was real cool how you explain the water and how we get it and everything. Is there any way that we could possibly get him to like do a PowerPoint and put it on channel 18 so that the residents can, and we can keep looping it so that the residents and if you're I'm dead serious. And if like, cause kids, you know what I'm saying, cause kids, and make it real kid friendly so that the kids can understand and so that they can grow up and be interested in water and the system and possibly, you know what I'm saying, grow up to, you know, care. Cause I didn't know how it happened, you know, prior to now. And since you explain it so well and you say that, you know, you do it so that kids can understand, that would be great.
No, but you know, like, that's the real purpose. That was the whole purpose of asking that, of Shirley asking that, because once you begin to understand the actual processes that go on, you have a better respect. And just like kids, right? No child would even think about becoming an astronaut if it's not brought to them, right? If they're not in that mindset. So why would they think about being an astronaut? Just like at the water plant, like I really think, in no offense to the police department, because I know that it's integral, but the water department is like life because it represents life. It's really the most critical department that's in the city. So you have those employees over there. There are people that have been over there 20, close to 30 years, right? And I have the utmost respect for them and their opinions and whatever they've done, because the analogy I always use for the water treatment plant is that it was a hoopty car, but it's a hoopty car, but they have kept it going, right? So anytime I have an opportunity to uplift those people that have been there 15, 20 years and have carried that through, we have to acknowledge them and respect them and just value who they are, because it's not their fault what has occurred. They worked up under whatever leadership that was there and brought those resources or no resources to them in order for them to survive. And so I say that to say, when y'all see the people that work over at the water treatment plant, shake their hands and just say thank you, because they work really, really hard. And also, I was talking to somebody about Boynton today. What Boynton does is, within their entire city, they have what's called progression plans, like career development plans. In all of their departments, they think of ways to move their employees up. They don't necessarily go outside looking to bring anybody in. They look at what they have and they value what they have and they think of ways to bring them up. So I was trying to think of a way, because with the water plant over at utilities, they're not the persons that are there. There are people that are about to leave and retire, right? So what are we gonna do? Do you look outside to constantly bring in people when you have men that have been there all during these times, the hard times? Try to figure out a way to boost them up. Give them the training that they need. Look to the young children that live in the community. Make them aware. Like you said, come to TV 18. Go to Facebook. Make them aware of the opportunities. Think of a way that you can utilize the children, the young people that live right here in the city. Bring the water treatment plant to them. Let that be a career path for them. And I bring that back. You're not going to want to be an astronaut. You won't even know what one is unless you bring it to them. Let's bring that water treatment plant to the community so that our young people can benefit and take on career opportunities that they otherwise would not do.
And
Thank you.
And we will certainly do a video that explains what Jonathan just communicated, as well as what are some of the improvements, and have additional meetings. But I can tell you the reason that we are able to drink the water in the community is because we have ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The staff that is there have been the staff that has kept this community being able to get water from this community. If we didn't have some of the folks that we have there today and the knowledge base, and they are some of the, if you ever needed help on biology or chemistry or anything, that is a great place to go to get some help. Our staff is exceptional over there, and we are so fortunate to have the people that we have. But to Ms. Jacobs' point, we need to build that depth and that strength to allow for the operations to continue, because now things are becoming more technologically advanced. And so as we move into the next plant, how are we training for the next generation, the next group? We probably have in the next 10 to 15 years, probably in the next 10 years, most of the individuals in our plant are going to be retiring. And so we have to prepare for that. And so we are looking at opportunities and programs that we can allow for folks to move in through the organization and move up through the organization without them having to wait for a vacancy. Governments traditionally have a bad habit of creating positions, and then the only way you get to move up is somebody has to die or retire. We want to create a program whereby if you go and get certifications and training and years of experience, you move up to the next rung and you continue to move up in the agency, because if that person leaves after 5 years of service at the City of Riviera Beach, when we bring somebody in, it costs about $5,000 to get that person caught up to where we are, and then by the time they amass all that knowledge, they leave to another agency. So we want to create that depth. But if it wasn't for the folks that we have in a lot of our departments, in all of our departments for that matter, we'd be in a profoundly different situation. But we are going to communicate with the community some of the things that are happening at the water treatment plant and the needs that the city has and the plans that it has for the long term. But I think, Mr. Grace, if you can kind of bring the community in on the process for a new plan and what that looks like.
Absolutely. About the safety, about the safety of the water. Yeah. I'm going to address the safety, but I'd just like to echo one thing here, because I think the ideas from that gentleman are really powerful. And this new water plant, really, it has the opportunity to be transformative for the city in many respects, extending well beyond the quality of water. You're essentially going to have a high-tech facility that will require multiple specialty disciplines, instrument techs, data managers, advanced operations and maintenance specialists, a whole array of capabilities. Think about the opportunities from, the high school grad coming in as a trainee all the way up to the various ladders, etc. It really can be an engine of development for the community, and something that the community can really take collective pride in. And I think doing a really nice piece, Mr. Batista has to look for it, that not just focuses narrowly, but tells the whole story for how the utility is going to evolve and develop, can be an initial powerful step in really bringing the community on board with this powerful thing. So, going back to the question on the safety of the water, simply put, the water is safe to drink. Every gallon of water that's produced through that plant is monitored continuously for critical parameters, disinfectant residual being one, turbidity, things of that nature. State and federal regulations define hundreds of parameters on an annual basis, all the way through daily monitoring that must be kept a track of and reported to respective agencies. The bottled water that everyone in here is drinking is not regulated, to the same degree as the drinking water coming out of the tap. There's no, once it leaves the factory, there's nothing. There's none of the drinking water standards that apply to your water plant apply to any of the bottles of water in here. So, the challenge again is the aesthetics, right? The color creates this perception of do I want to drink it, right? But the color is really a harmless artifact of the history of the water. The technology will take care of that, right? And remove that from consideration. But the water won't be any more healthy to drink. It will be just more pleasant to drink, right? And it will provide, a fair bit of future proofing, because the regulations are always evolving. As regulations become more stringent, it becomes more challenging for your 60-year-old plant to keep pace with it. So it's really resetting things and really allowing the plant to perform at its best capability by deploying new technology. But every gallon of water is safe to drink.
Thank you so much, Mr. Elijah. We appreciate that, and I just wanted to say that because of course water is life, I just wanted to be able, because when I first went to the water plant, I drink water, I really wanted to know how this process works. How do we get this water out of our tap? What happens with that? When we have a whole utility district, and we have separate meetings for the utility district, and you see 100,000 here and 200,000 here, we're trying to make sure that this water is safe to drink, and that we can ensure not only the safety of the residents, that you can actually drink it. And as I told you earlier, this water has gotten much better to drink than it was. So we are moving in the right direction. When we talk about, and Ms. Jacobs also said it, when we're moving in a direction of upgrading, keeping up our water, expanding to a new water plant, those are careers for people, for young people. Those are careers in water treatment. When you apply for a job at these water treatment plants, they are very technical about what you need to know to be able to work there. I mean, it includes everything from a chemist to a person who, to an engineer. All of these are not just little fly-by-night type of careers. These are legitimate, top shelf careers here to have. And then if you know how to master that, to master how you treat water and how you take it out of the ground, make it drinkable, those are just careers waiting to happen. They are happening, but for us to move in that direction and to build something around that as well. So, I wanted to just bring that to the public because, of course, as I said before, everybody talk about the water. So we want to have a conversation about it. But with that being said, thank you, Mr. Nigel. Thank you.
Thank you.
One question.
I have a question. Thank you both for your service. Jonathan Baptiste? Oh my, we have so many Jonathans around here. I'm gonna have to lump you all together here, okay? Thank you for your service, okay? You were so thorough in your explanation and breaking it down, the line, putting out your posters and stuff. I always say to educate us is to know where we're at and where we're going. Nigel, thank you as well for just not being so convoluted, but just giving it to us straight. I always say that when you tell us the truth, we can accept it better, and we can work with you better. We only have, from 1960 to where we are now, we know the infrastructure here is really bad. It's just no doubt about that. But we can't just keep talking about it. It's time for us to make actions and make good on servicing us. Because my motto has always been, water is life. And we cannot survive without it. So if we can get the new plan and stuff up and running, and with all the new technology, it will be a lot of opportunities there. Now, I'm going to have to ask this question here, because I know that we have spills, and I want someone to explain to the general public why we do have spills. Why do we do have spills? And then have we had any of the health citations, that have not been corrected in order for the residents to be comfortable and at ease too? because we know that you're doing everything that you can, and we see that. I took a tour over there to the plant, because I wanted to know some things myself. So the best way to do that is to get up, seek and you shall find. So, but we know that we have spills. Why do those spills occur? And then when we do have those spills, your corrective action or plan in addressing those things, because we do know that we have them in the neighborhood. And are we following all the guidelines with the health department? Why am I saying this? Because if we are to start anew, then we must be on that track. Because the past is the past, but where we're going at, to me, what matters. So if someone can expound on that a little bit for the general public and make everybody at ease. Thank you. Can you address that, Jonathan?
So the story of the water treatment plant and its condition is something that we've experienced with the rest of the utility, the wells, the lift stations, the sewers. Essentially everything has gone through a period where it's aging and it needs help. And so when it comes to spills and it comes to our sewers and lift stations, that is why we decided that we needed to conduct immediate assessments to be able to find, okay, which lift stations are in the worst condition and have the highest risk. And right now, some of these lift stations are on their last leg. They're just barely getting by, but the only reason why they're getting by is through the hard work of our staff constantly monitoring their condition. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of hours to constantly baby something for days on end. And so the goal right now is to say, okay, what are the critical improvements that are needed to bring it up to a level where we could step away for a week or a month and not feel like this is just about ready to fail. And so we're well aware of the issues that we face, and now it's just a matter of doing triage, finding where the bleeding is happening and how do we stop the bleeding. And then once that's happened, we can move on to improving and optimizing. So we're just taking it step by step, preventing the emergencies, and then moving on to getting to a much better system.
Okay. So, Ms. Brown, remember last night at the USD meeting, it was all of those different items that were brought before the board to ask the board if they would be willing to approve of the different contracts to get the different assessments done and the improvements done. That has a lot to do with the spills. It's just old. Our infrastructure is really, really old. But, I mean, there are people that are working really hard, like Mr. Batista and his staff, and they accept what it is, but not only do they accept it, they do whatever is necessary. They go ahead. Why it has not occurred in the past, nobody knows. Everybody here now, the leadership anyway is new. So nobody knows why. Nobody took it upon themselves to actually do what was necessary in order to perform repairs or to bring in new infrastructure. So at this point, all you can do is assess what is there and do whatever it takes to make it better until we can get to where we need to be. But last night at that meeting, at least 6 or 7 of those items had to do with assessment and repair issues for the infrastructure. So that's just where we are.
You know, we just worry about long we go to split level, you know what I mean?
We're trying to work. Yeah.
No, sir, we won't get there either.
Okay, we all know about that kid, right? You know, I just had 200,000 people drinking toxic water for 20 years.
Yeah.
And to that point, that is why the first thing when I heard that clarifier was down, and it was just communicated that it was down and that there was no good reason or rationale behind it, we brought it to the board. And I think that was my first USD meeting where I asked the board for $1 million to move forward with it, because it was a priority. And we operate as such. We're not bringing things to the board that we think are nice to have. We have to focus on the meat and potatoes of our community. We've had an opportunity to eat off the dessert tray, but now we need to focus on the core things to address some of the challenges we have in our facilities, our water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure, and some of the other things that we have. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but we have a great team, and we'll be able to accomplish it, and the community will be proud about the improvements that are coming down the pipe.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Batista. We're gonna move on to, we're gonna take Mr. Clarence Sermons. Mr. Clarence Sermons is our Director of Developmental Services. I wanted him to, first of all, tell you what Developmental Services is, what it consists of at the City of Riviera Beach, and give us some background. The main thing that's come to my mind in terms of developmental services is permitting, which means that if you're trying to start a small business, you want to add on a bathroom to your house, you would have to come to the city to get a permit. So I want people to know what that process is, and I also want them to know what this department consists of. See, a lot of times when you're involved in government, you know, people say, well, you know, y'all just need to get it done. Number one, there are processes that are in place, and number two, different departments handle different things. Ms. Bostic, with the code enforcement, it used to be under the police department. It was under the police department, but it became a situation where it was punitive. You know, you fix your yard and that's it. So when you bring it under another department and it's compliance, then you're trying to help people to get their property or whatever it is in order. But Mr. Sermons, go ahead, please, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Councilwoman Lanier.
And also, too, you see my mask? It says Florida A&M University.
Yes, sir.
Florida A&M University.
All day.
Florida A&M University. Walter in the back, Florida A&M University. Oh, Mr. Walker, the police, Florida A&M University. Police right here, there we go.
And it's and no, it's not.
You know what though? I'm gonna tell you, Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M University. That's another family in the back. Oh, there we go. Oh, so Bethune-Cookman, okay. But you know that's what happens when you have HBCUs, and all my teachers when I was in high school and elementary school, if they were black, they went to a black college. And the thing about it is that was the only place we could go. But now, you know, everybody wants the HBCU experience. Well, we're here to tell you that, guess what? We bring it.
Yes. We run it our city. How about that?
Right.
Yes.
That's right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sermons.
I would say that there's no coincidence that all this change that has been going around coincides with all of these rattlers joining the organization. It's not a coincidence. Well, good evening, everyone. Again, I am Clarence Sermons, the Director of the Development Services Department. This department provides a very important function for the city, and I like to think of it as three phases. We plan the city, all of the land that's here. There is a long-term plan for it. There's a zone for it, and we take a lot of time determining what the best mix of our land and the usage and the values of it over a long term, because we don't get to change it. We don't get to add to that. So we plan the city. We build the city in our building division and our building officials to make sure everything adheres to the codes and is safe for us during different situations, especially storm events and things of that nature. And then we maintain the city through our code enforcement or code compliance division. After something is constructed, after being planned, we want to make sure that it's taken care of and doesn't become unsightly or degrade the quality of our community. So that's the main function of the department, to plan the city, build the city, and to maintain it. We do that through 4 divisions, the code compliance division, the buildings division, the operations division, as well as our planning staff. And I know there was a lot of talk related to code compliance, and I've been hearing a lot of the feedback related to it since I've joined the city about 5 months ago. And we are in the middle of reforming our code compliance division. Several of the actions I was able to take with my staff in terms of just not being too lenient on repeat offenders who, you know, ask for grace, but they really don't intend to make a difference. And you know, at some point we have to draw the line and say it's time to take them to the magistrate and start fining them for certain things. So that's something we did. I reinstated the field supervisor position just to make sure that there's levels to administration of the department and supervision. And some of the changes are coming before council soon. One of them was mentioned, working more closely with the police department so that we can come at properties that are not fulfilling their commitment to this community from both angles, from the development services side as well as the police side. So working together with them, sharing information, and taking those properties to the magistrate judge at the same time, so a judge can really see the breadth of neglect or nuisances that are taking place at those properties. So we've been speaking with police about that. We've been speaking about adding to our building code the property maintenance clause that any municipality has the right to do, but we haven't established that in Riviera Beach. So that gives more items that our code enforcement officers can cite these properties for when there are owners or absentee landlords that are obviously neglecting these properties because they don't live there and just want to, you know, rent them out and try to use them to make money. But this property maintenance code will make a big difference in just the amount of tools that our code enforcement division has. And we also are looking at amending the lien process that Mr. Evans mentioned earlier. So there's a lot of work going on, and this is another department where there are a lot of hard-working people that keep things running. So, but as far as our homeowners here, what I will say is if you're getting some work done, the permit process is not difficult. Make sure you take the time to go through it, though, and it's for several reasons. For one, is to protect you from predatory contractors that will take advantage of you and do a bad or shoddy job at the things that you may bring them out there for. If they're not going through the permit process, that could potentially hurt you. And additionally, it's the law. So again, don't rely on those nights and weekend contractors to get work done because it's not advantageous to you as a homeowner and the quality of the work. And also, the building code is here to protect us all. So that's one of the things that we regulate through this department. In most cases, if you're getting some work done, it's your contractor's responsibility to come to the city and apply for the permit for the work that he's doing. If the contractor has not asked you to sign a form giving him permission to make some changes to your property, then that means he did not get a permit. So if you hired a contractor to make some alterations to a building or install a water heater or something like that, they should be asking you to sign the permit application, and that's how you know that they're getting a permit. We have staff that when they observe it, including our code enforcement staff, if they observe some work being done without a permit, they will stop it and make sure they get that done. But some work is done inside of your homes, and it's harder to observe that. So I will emphasize that it is part of the process. It's the law. It protects you and it protects the city. If you are experiencing some delays with the permit process, let me know. I am the first one to make sure I address my staff and say, is there an issue here? Is something holding this up? Can we expedite it and get this homeowner with a shovel in the ground more quickly? And that's part of my job, and my operations division specializes that in focusing on just the quickness and the fluidness of the permit process. So if you have any issues, don't hesitate, but it starts with getting the permit.
Could you, Mr. Sermons, could you provide the public with your phone number?
Yes, I can. It is, double check,
the permit process at the city, and then as you said, you know, the department, it has different divisions of it, but, you know, it comes down to, you know, when we're, you know, building new houses in the city, it comes down to making sure that they're safe, and, you know, of course, we are, you know, right in the middle of, you know, hurricanes, to make sure that these properties are safe, to make sure that these contractors are pulling permits, because, you know, people like to come to the city of Riviera Beach and do what they want to do. And we have to make sure that we have policies and we have processes in place to ensure the safety for our residents. And that people just can't come here and build what they want, and it's not safe. They can't come here and just, do whatever they like in terms of putting up buildings, or in terms of having a building and not keeping it up. So what we want to do is make sure that people understand what that process is. And what is the number, Mr. Terrence?
Yes, ma'am. 561-845-4060. 561-845-4060. And again, we are in the customer service business. So if you call us with just questions, need for help or issues, or if you observe someone doing some work and it doesn't look like it's being done legitimately, let us know and we'll look into it. I do want to get to your question about small businesses as well. It's very important that we nurture and support our small businesses. And the main thing I would say to anyone who has a operation, you may have started out of your home making a good or providing a service for someone, and it's time to scale up and get your own storefront. We encourage and applaud that, whether you are leasing out a space or especially if you are constructing or moving into a new building that needs some renovations or something like that. The land development process is complicated. And there is almost certainly aspects to it that you won't be aware of as a small business owner. If you provide tax services, that's your area of expertise. But when it comes to building codes and planning regulations, it's complicated, and you need to get all of the information possible before you make any investments in land, because it's very expensive, or even leases, because there are contractual agreements there. Come to us, have a pre-application meeting, let us know what property you're looking at, what business you are looking to operate at that location, and we will give you as much information as we can to make that process as smooth for you as possible, because again, it's going to be more complicated than you think, but we're here to serve and we're here to help you along the way. But before you invest in any property in the city for commercial or small businesses, make sure you speak with us first, and we will help you through it. So start with that pre-application meeting, and we'll be here for you through the site plan process and the permit process, and getting you to a certificate of occupancy at the end of the road. And we'll even come to a ribbon cutting ceremony if you have one. We'd love to be invited to those kinds of things as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Somebody had a question. This young lady here.
Good evening. Tessie Watts, a Riviera Beach resident. So right now we're in the process of assisting my mom with renovating her home. And it's because code enforcement is always out there talking about this with your asphalt, this with your yard. It's crazy. So we are looking at getting a loan to help her with that process. So the question that we have is, do you all have a list of viable vendors that we can look into that have already been approved through the process, through the city, that we could tap into or start interviewing to get things going?
We could certainly provide you with a list of contractors that have done business with the city before. That's not a problem. However, we would shy away from making any specific recommendations.
Right. Okay. So
Not a
just
problem.
give you a call?
Yes, ma'am. Give me
All
a
right.
call and we'll get on that for you.
Thank you.
And the number
You're
again
welcome.
is 845-4060. Come on. And also too, when we talk about developmental services, this is 8 square miles, which make up the city of Riviera Beach. Every piece of patch of land is valuable here in this city. And, when we go through developmental services, and people come and they want to build in the city, and we welcome economic development in the city. We welcome people to bring business to the city. But we also want to make sure that we're not giving away land, that we are making sure that the residents in this city have a say in what piece of land goes where. I just want to kind of throw that one in. Thank you so much.
We're gonna talk after too, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to ask a question. You might say, that's old stuff.
No, go ahead.
It's old stuff. Stony Brooks, What y'all doing about Stony Brooks? I know they built the building that was on fire for 6 years. They doing construction. Have they had permits, code enforcement been out? I know when they weren't even going out there.
Okay, Mr. Evans, you want to speak to some of the things that are happening over at Stony Brooks now?
Certainly, I think from what's been communicated to me is that, obviously they're renovating units and facilities. They are pulling the appropriate permits. They are bringing some of those facilities online. I haven't heard of any code compliance related issues on the property since they have started any construction activities. Ms. Bostic, have we gotten any complaints or?
We received one, I think,
last week. And I'll offer this to you and any resident for that matter. I have no problem reaching out to the property manager and seeing if there's an opportunity to set up a tour to take a look at some of the work that they're doing. Obviously, it would have to be at their availability, but certainly if you want to reach out to me, we can go over there and take a look.
You're gonna reach out to me, or you gonna reach out to the residents that's living out there and still going through the thing that the apartments they are in?
Well, again, with regards to the question you asked, what's going on over there, I haven't heard any complaints or any issues. If there are any complaints or any issues, we try to resolve those particular issues. We have, like code compliance said, there's one complaint that's out there, and they probably are working towards remedying that, but I know that they are moving with regards to renovating those facilities, and they have, renovated a number of them, and they are moving forward with the construction of their clubhouse. Ms. Bostic, what is the complaint that was, are you able to provide details on that, or is it still under review?
It's under review.
Okay.
Mr. Williams.
Okay.
If Ms. Long can see what the complaint. You can call me tomorrow.
I will.
And
I'd like to give a
one-
comment to her. She's a good code
We
enforcement
haven't
person.
received any other complaints other than the one I know came in last week.
And one thing I can add is that our building inspectors and our building official has personally went out to the site to look at the quality of the work they're doing with the renovations, and it's being done very well. And he had no issues with the quality and the care that they're taking with the renovations. They are going one building at a time, but the work is looking very good, and it's a definite enhancement to what was inside and outside of those buildings before.
Okay. We have a wonderful new chief here. I see my major back there. But you still have a lot of problems out there as the bad people there. I see some wonderful people there, but you still need some more work out there. I know some people out there. My niece was there. She won her case. Y'all never will let me show you the pictures, how terrible it was. Some of those people still in that same building out there. That's all. Actually, are you talking? He said you asked what permits were, and then you brought it to me. You didn't have no complaint. So I'm telling you that there are people there, still there, have complaints and still living with the roaches and the rats and everything, but they're renovating. You need to speak to the resident. Don't tell me. I don't live there. I want y'all to go out and talk to the people that live there and see what's going on, what's being said to them. You might have new management. I don't know. I don't live out there. I just visit the people sometimes and take them food. Okay? Let's talk to the people that live in there. That's good you have this new position here. I will be contacting you, but I can say this much about Mrs. Bostic. She's a good code enforcement. I can go talk to her about different things. If I know something, I'll come and tell her about it so she can check on it. Miss Jacob, did you get my call from last week?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Oh, they told me you got it and you gonna call me back.
I'm not sure who you spoke to, but I never got a call from you.
Huh?
I'm not sure who you spoke to or who
I
said
spoke
that
to
you.
your secretary.
Well, she's never said that to me.
Oh, she said she texted you. You wanna see the pictures what I text them to show them what it was about?
If you like, you can show them to me. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, well, afterwards, you're gonna see those pictures.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Ms. Williams, and thank you.
You think, also, we gonna be out there and talk to the residents. I know you're doing a lot of
Listen, let me
improvement,
tell you
but there's
something.
people that are still out there need
Miss
help.
Williams, let me tell you this. First of all, do not think that we are not concerned about the people who live not just in Stony Brook, but in the entire city. That's number one. Number two, Stony Brook is a private development. That's private property, which means that someone owns it, someone runs it. It has nothing to do with the city. It just happens to be in the city of Riviera Beach. But it does not mean that we don't care about what happens to those people that live out there.
It seems as if y'all doesn't.
Listen now, the people who are living in Stony Brook are just like somebody who living on 3rd Street. Everybody has challenges in terms of the property that they live in or where they live. And we try to do everything that we can to address those issues. But because it is not the city's property, we don't own that property. What we can do is to make sure that, number one, they're not building shoddy,
That's what he said, he was gonna take care of
buildings.
You just say that, if they're not
Right,
taking care,
and we have to,
you're supposed to
guess
go out there.
That is, and we have to make sure that when they call the police comes.
They come.
That is our job. But because it is a private development.
But they're being funded by HUD. That's why you can go in
It is
there.
a federal
Y'all
government
need
property.
to go in there. Don't tell me about private owned. That's why those people live so that long in that situation. You say
so
you
that
even
means
lived
that,
there
Ms.
when you was
Williams,
young.
let me give you a good example. How about this? All right, you at your house. So I come in your house and I say, listen, I don't like that you have, I don't like that you have, how this room looks with these yellow curtains. I want you to take these down right now. Now, this is your house now. So this is the same type of analogy. This is a private development. And what the city can do is enforce the rules and the law that applies to every resident in this city. That means police, that means code enforcement, that means if the fire department get called, they have to come. But me, Councilwoman Lanier, cannot go and say, listen, you better do this and you better do that, because that's not my property.
I don't want you to go out there and say, I want y'all to meet with the people. You got a clubhouse out there.
Is that when I've had conversations with the property managers, I have made the fact that residents are having complaints about what is happening there. So don't never think or say that the city of Riviera Beach is not concerned about its residents.
I can't
or the
say
people
that.
who specifically
I will
live
say
in
that
Stony
because
Brook.
the people I know there are telling me that. Maybe I could get them to come and speak to you personally. I've asked them how many times
Well,
you've been
just
and
come on.
spoke to
Well,
them.
you said you're gonna speak to me after the meeting. Let's do
Yeah,
that.
2
All
years.
right, very good.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
people there, they tell me when I go to the pantry, I just get pantry food and give it to different people, families, single women with children. I take it on to seniors. And when I bring it to the people, they tell me, same old thing, these stuff here. Speak to them. You got a town hall meeting. Why don't y'all meet
I have
out there?
this
You
town
have
hall meeting, and
right
guess
now,
what? I
tonight.
had someone to go out to Stony Brook and put flyers on every door out there. So there were any issues that they had living in Stony Brook.
They used to come.
And
y'all
they
used to shoot
could
'em
come,
down.
they could have came to the meeting tonight, and guess what? They can call my number, 561-268-3378, if they want to speak to me.
Well, to me, it's me. I think in authority and in leadership, sometimes we got to go beyond where we are and reach down to the ones that
Yes,
seem like
I totally agree.
they're deplorable, they seem like they don't care. You're going to have to make a different effort. I've called her. She sent somebody. She have a code enforcement, Mr. Williams. He's not related to me. I call him, he go. They try to do. That's what I'm talking about. Somebody, if you call in, I don't call your number. 2 years. How many months was that? How many hours? So we gonna get that straightened
when
out,
this meeting
okay?
is
I
over,
think you need to see.
come right up here and have a
He
conversation
say
with
if
me.
you say if the building's not being done, those buildings been there. How long you say you lived there when you was a child? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's just.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, ma'am. I want you.
Okay.
I'm a funny person. I'll
No,
make you
no,
laugh, but I'm
listen,
serious too.
This is what a town hall meeting is supposed to be for. This town hall meeting is that whatever issue that a resident that lives in this city has. They can come and they can talk to the people who work in this city. And guess what? You know, it doesn't have to be just tonight. Every time someone comes up here, we've given out phone numbers to the public. If you want to talk to this gentleman here, you want to talk to the chief of police, you want to talk to Ms. Bostic in code enforcement, you want to talk to the water utilities director, you can go right and you can have a conversation with him.
I will.
Thank you, ma'am.
Don't think I'm on you. I'm just saying, cause if you see the picture.
Listen, no, you have a right to do that.
You see the picture.
You can come up here at this podium.
Trying to get some help.
And listen, Ms. Williams, we work for you. We are, especially me as an elected official, we work for the people in this city. I don't work, I don't come to the city of Riviera Beach because, that's just my job. No, I was elected. And that means that enough people chose me.
I voted for you.
Just to come up here and say, listen, that means that whatever issues that you have, you should be able to come to me and have a conversation about it. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Well, that's a new day, you say.
All right.
Turn a new page. I'm going to.
That's right. We're turning a new page. You're exactly right.
Okay.
All right. Okay, we have this last comment, and then we're going to move on to the police department.
Do you know what Stony Brook is resonating here? I'm glad he's here. I was over there today with a group of people. Dr. Botel was there today too. Anybody in this city know that Ms. Bram has been a stout advocate for Stony Brook, that make sure the decency of those peoples that live there be respected as human beings. I was out there today, and I went from one section to another section. Why? Because they know Ms. Bram as well too. I did not hear not one complaint. Those people are happy that progress is moving on. And when you talk about some of those buildings that are still there, they are there because they do one section, and then they move them out and move them back in. Not one time today that we heard any complaints about how the residents feel. They're happy. It was on Channel 5 today. This is why all of this is in the air again. It was on Channel 5 today. And we did a whole update. The construction crew and stuff was out there. I talked with the residents. You know what? They're happy. Because they finally said, Ms. Brown, we feel like we are a part. And the renovation that is going on that those people are doing out there, those apartments are beautiful.
Yeah, I heard.
I cried because that was what I had wanted for this community within a community. And if it had to be cleaned out so progress could be made, let it be. They're happy. They're getting some of those component things out there, what they need. And that is why some of those buildings are still standing there, because they're going section by section. I did not mean to divulge in this, but see, it was on the news today. So I know, I know you'll probably get a little bit more, but Ms. Bram and others can tell you. Mr. Sherman is sitting here. The question was asked about the permitting and stuff. He said too that he haven't had no problems. Ms. Bostic is here too. Whatever complaint, like she said. But it's moving along. And one thing that I come to realize, people does not like progress and change. That change can be frightening to them sometimes. But when that change occurs, oh, it's a beautiful change. We still got to move. So I'm sorry for dialoguing that about Stony Brook.
That's fine.
But I mentioned about Stony Brook when I first spoke.
Thank you so much.
I did have a question.
I'm glad you were over there today.
I had a question. I think she asked the same question that I asked. Because I too would like to have a list of the city contractors, what you have. I would like a list of that.
Okay.
Now,
And
Yeah, we can put that in a document and just make it public on our page, just
Yes,
a list of
yes,
our
yes.
regular contractors that come through the
Yes,
city, so
that
we
would
can
be
do that.
very, very helpful, because that is a tool for all of us. And my next question is, maybe you know, or maybe you can't tell me this. How long does it take for a resident to receive a permit? If you're doing some renovation on your house, and if you got a reputable contractor, how long does that take? What time frame is that? Or is it kind of narrow?
That's one of those it depends questions. It depends on the type of renovation. Some light renovations, we may only need one discipline to look at it, just to look at the drywall. Others may need more disciplines, and it may require our planners to look in it. So it just depends on how extensive the renovation is. We are working diligently to improve our permit turnaround times. They're not where I want them to be, but we're going to get there. And that's why I encourage you, if anyone has submitted a permit and is experiencing significant delays, let me know, and I will pull that permit and see what's holding it up, and we'll get to the bottom of it and get you moving forward. So it's getting there, but if you have a specific permit, I'll look at it and take care of it for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Sorry about the delay.
That's okay. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Sermons, for that. Our last piece to this is police department. Now, I want to introduce Chief Osgood to the public. He was supposed to have a formal introduction to the public, but then COVID hit, and then that got kind of pushed. I want to say this before he talks about the plan for the city. Now, as you know, the city of Riviera Beach is 80% African American. And as you know, what has happened to black people, women and men, in terms of the police. We understand that that is national news. We also do understand that if something happens, we want to be able to call the police too. We want to be able, especially in a city that has this makeup, we want to be able to, number one, change the way young people look at police. Change the way young people look in terms of what the police is supposed to do. So I just wanted to be able to say that, because we all need to be able to be comfortable with the police, and also to be able to feel like we are safe with the police. And I say that, and I'm going to bring Mr. Osgood, and you can just talk briefly, Mr. Osgood, about some of the activities planned, some of the things you have going on. I wanted you to have, and we're going to do this again, a longer conversation, but in essence of time, because of the fact that time just got away from us tonight. Let us have this conversation briefly with Mr. Osgood in terms of the city, crime in the city, how we're going to address that, and how we want this city to look in terms of reduced crime.
Councilwoman, thank you so much. Before I have a seat, I would like to introduce the command staff.
Yes, please.
All righty. First, I have Assistant Chief Mike Madden. I have Major Spencer Rozier, he's Operational Road Patrol. And Major Travis Walker, who runs the Strategic Investigation Divisions. Also, I'm not turning my back on you, but I would like to introduce myself real quick. Community, I'm Chief Nate Osgood. I met most of you, some of you I do not know. I give each and every person I come across my cell phone number. I give you my office number and my cell phone number. You probably want to talk about it. We can have a short conversation, and then we'll address it and try to get to the root of the problem. My cell phone number is 561-313-1432. And then you can also call the office if you need to make an appointment. My secretary would take the appointment and put you on the calendar in some kind of way. That's 561-845-4138. All right, thank you. So, first of all, Councilwoman, we have many different programs, initiatives that we're starting in the city of Riviera Beach. I'm thankful to be here in the city of Riviera Beach. This was actually my dream job. I actually told that to Major Walker about 6 years ago. I wanted to come here to Riviera Beach to be the police chief because I felt this was a city that needed some of the things I know I can bring to this city. We're expanding on our community policing program. I'm not going to go in order on what I have here because of some things you said. I want to make sure we address on everything, touch on everything. Community policing program is going to comprise of many different things. You will see each of our zone officers each and every day going out. They're assigned to a specific zone. And so they're going to be tested and quizzed. How many people did you meet today and did you have a conversation? That's what they're asked to do. So each one, so you'll see 4 different officers for that zone. In other words, we have 2 shifts in the daytime, 2 shifts in the nighttime, because when one shift is off, the other shift is rotating, days and nights. And then they're going to go out and meet community members. Just like I gave you my cell phone number, I'm getting to know people in this city, and they're getting to know me. And because of that, I'm getting a lot of information that I'm able to pass on to our strategic investigation divisions, maybe to code enforcement, maybe to our nuisance abatement team. And then we also have our COP unit, Community Oriented Policing unit. They are actually, you'll see them on bicycles from time to time. And we actually expanded the bicycle unit to make it into the road patrol, and you can call them out. Major Rozier has the ability to call them out, or Major Lewis to call them out and start putting them on different functions. With the bicycle unit, you will see them riding around, engaging in the community and talking to individuals. You'll see them mostly as special functions. You also see something that's done in this city that is not done in a lot of cities. I know because I tried to get it done in different cities. We do a lot of drive-by birthday parties, or we do a lot of that. That's another way we engage with the community to get to know the community a lot better. Now, we are a busy community. We run close to 400 calls for service a day. These are calls that they're calling into 911 dispatch or the non-emergency numbers, and we have to respond to those calls. We have to. So we're a busy community, and we're getting this done with I say a limited amount of police officers at one given time on the street. You may have 12 to 15, and that includes detectives. So our officers are getting the job done. A busy city with limited resources. So we get a lot of calls in our city. You heard from Ms. Bostic earlier about code enforcement. Part of the code that we get many complaints on, we get a lot of complaints regarding code issues in blighted communities. There are anonymous complaints. We will not divulge where we get any information from, so we have to say this. And so at the same time, we understand where the community members are making the best living they can. So we ask our police officers to give verbal warnings and compliance first. And I'm sure Ms. Bostic will tell you the exact same thing before we start citing individuals. We ask for compliance and we give warning first. But then we continue to get a lot of complaints from residents about what are you doing about this particular person. And again, we do not divulge where we're getting our information from or who's complaining. Sometimes when a homeowner or a person's complained on, they would like to know who complained on them. It wouldn't be fair to say your neighbor told on you. That wouldn't be fair. So our officers have to take it and eat it and make it, and often they get accused of being the persons who come out to be the ones who are addressing the complaint and taking it as if it's a complaint by a police department. It is not. Our job is to engage with the community and try to help them understand. I would like to also say, when I took the job here, the first thing I wanted to do is implement President Barack Obama's 21st century policing. It's one of the best police manual, and it's not that big. I read in all my years of law enforcement. He talked about 6 pillars of police work, and the 6 pillars, I'm going to address a couple of them if you don't mind, ma'am.
Go ahead.
In the 6 pillars of policing, it mentions things that you would think is common sense or normal police behavior practicing, but not every police department practice them. The 6 pillars are policy and oversight. We do just that. Every single Monday morning, the command staff, we meet.
You said policy and what?
Policy and oversight. Oversight of what we do and how we're doing it. These are straight from the 21st century policing, and these are what we're practicing. We also, every single Monday morning, we meet for 2.5 hours going over policies, and the command staff that you see behind me, a little bit more, including the attorney, we go over all of our policies to make sure we're doing it right by Florida standards and by the law.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. All right, now tell me, when you talk about policy, tell
Yes,
me
ma'am.
about the city's use of force policy.
Yes, ma'am. So, police department have a use of force policy we actually revised it, but we revamped it. Going back to 21st century policing, we follow this 8 straight. I'm sure you heard that recently during the 8 can't wait. One is ban on chokeholds. I can assure you, we do not do chokeholds.
It's called what now?
I'm sorry?
You said, what is it called?
Oh, the 8 can't wait.
Oh, okay.
It's the 8 can't wait. That's their terminology, but some people may call it
But no, what
different
kind
things.
of chokehold you talking about now?
Any chokeholds. We do not do any chokeholds.
Okay.
There's no chokeholds and now I'm not going to tell you that a life or death situation, if a cop is being probably struggling for his life, he's not going to try to take every advantage that he can to get out of it. So that's different. But we do not do chokeholds. We do not teach them. We actually tell you you can use other methods in a chokehold.
So the city's use of force policy, of course, I mean, I think that, okay, listen. State of New York, City of New York had a anti-chokehold policy, but they choked out Eric Gardner. So the thing about it is that I think that what residents want to know is that, and I know this to be true, that our police department is not that type of police department.
That's
I
correct.
do know that.
We're not.
I also understand that, with the media involved and with, some complaints that have been against officers for, and let me say this, and the biggest complaint that they have against police officers is really just unprofessionalism. How they talk to people. So sometimes, it may not be something as major as, choking somebody out. It could be something as simple as how you talk to people when you greet them, how you talk to people. If you pull them over, you ain't got to go all crazy.
That's going to bring me to my next one. We talk about de-escalation.
Right,
And
exactly.
how you talk to individuals. And that goes back to the first point I said, is when we do our community policing. Now, I review, all of our officers are equipped with body-worn cameras. And when I review a lot of the complaints from body-worn cameras, and I review them, all the command staff review them, and thank God for the body-worn cameras, I'm going to tell you. I watch individuals curse police officer out from the head to the toe. And I watched a calm with the police officer on how he conducted himself or her. At times, I watched a police officer go to the human element and get angry and curse back. That's a human element. I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're not going to push my button one day and I don't fly off the handle. It could happen. But what I'm telling you, for the most part, I would like to tell you one of the 8 is de-escalation. So I may have a conversation with someone here on a traffic stop and he may or she may get really upset, curse me out and tell me about my life, things that I don't want him to hear about. Instead of meeting that person at that level, I'm going to bring it down a notch. Then I got to bring it down a notch again. And so that's what we're teaching. We have had training on this, is to de-escalate. When a person bring it up, we bring it down. When they go low, we go high. We think in a method of trying to be more professional. That's what our command staff is pushing and preaching.
Okay, now listen, not some other issues that residents have in terms of I'm not talking about police, I'm talking about City of Riviera Beach Police Department. Issues like, we have a lot of crime in this city.
Yes, ma'am.
We as residents want to know what is being done to reduce the crime here. Now, we know that we have to do our part. Number one, we don't commit crimes, so that doesn't happen. But we want to know as residents, you know, we have to do our part as well. But we know that the police job is really to solve crimes. You know, you have these crimes happening in the city, they don't get solved. So we want to be able to, we want to know what is our part in this. How do we get to a point where, I heard this before. All right, just go to Riviera Beach and shoot somebody because they ain't gonna never find out who it is anyway. So these are, when I'm talking like this, because this is what people tell me as an elected official. I brought you here because I want you to know we're not here to beat the police department up, because we need the police department. But we want to be able to work with the police department so that we can, number one, reduce the crime in this city. It is getting out of hand. And we want to be able to do our part with it, but we also know that you got 100 sworn officers and something need to be happening here. So all we want to do is to have this community dialogue so that we can understand what is it that our part is in trying to reduce this crime here. And as I said before, of course, you know, we don't commit it, but the police, just like, you know, when we talk about the importance of water, the police department determines whether you come in this city and buy a house. That means that if it's a high crime area, people don't want to come here and live. And also, I want the police department to be able to have more officers who live in this city. I want to be able to, because, you know, you can have community policing programs, but you have to have people who are committed to this city who live here. And that is one of the reasons why a part of the city council is to invest in more workforce housing. I mean, you know, our housing stock is not that great. So it's not that I don't blame them, it's just the fact that we want to be focused on trying to, number one, get the police officers in this city to live here, have an investment in this city, know how to talk to people, and reduce the crime here. That's all we're asking. We understand that the police is more than just policing.
And that's not too much to ask.
Yeah, the police has, you know, somebody might call you and say, listen, it's somebody, they done took some drugs and they done gone crazy. You're a mental health person now. So we understand the pressures that comes with a police officer, especially the perception of what the police is and what it means to African Americans in particular. So we understand the pressure that you are under in terms of how people view the police. What we want to do is we want to change that narrative for the city of Riviera Beach, number one. And number two, like I said, overall, we need to know how we can work with the police department to be able to reduce the crime in this city. So I'm asking you to, you know, talk to our residents, tell them what do we need to do. I know the police has to do their part, and you can tell me about, you know, your units and all that, but we need to know how we're going to come together. And I understand sometimes, too, I do understand this, that when crime does happen, you don't have no witnesses. You got people who not going to say nothing. That's common. They're afraid of repercussions. They're afraid that, you know, they don't know what might happen. But we have to get past all of that to figure out how we're going to reduce this crime in the city. And I know it takes all of us. It is not all on the police shoulders, because you can only do so much. You only come to the scene when a crime has occurred. That's when you show up. So what we have to figure out as residents, what we gonna do to prevent them from having even to show up. Because you're responding to crime all day long, and we're trying to, we as residents need to work with the police department to figure out what we need to do to, number one, prevent crime, and number two, solve crimes. So I say that because I just want us to be able, especially in a city with this makeup, to be able to have conversations with the police, knowing that this ain't the NYPD or this ain't the New Orleans Police Department. You know, so we understand the nature, and I understand the history of police and what it means as slave patrols and graduated to police officers. I understand all of that. But I understand too that we all have to work together to be able to reduce this crime here in the city. So my part in that is to be able to effectively bring residents and the police department. I don't want all this fluff, and I don't want all this. We need to really talk about how we're going to reduce crime. And the thing about it is that I know one of the biggest complaints is don't nobody want to say nothing. Something happened, somebody gets shot. So that's a big issue. I mean, it's a snitch factor. Nobody want to be known as a snitch. Nobody want to be known as, tell the police what happened. But we got to figure out something. We have to figure out something, because this is what is going to, it's just as big a part of the city as the water is. That is how we're going to grow the city. That is how we're going to get homeowners in this city to come in and buy and invest in the city, which means that they come into the city, they buy in the city, our schools get better, the crime decreases, we make more money, it's all good. So, you're here tonight, but I just wanted to introduce to the residents and to the public that we're going to start having some of these listening sessions. We're going to start having some of these sessions where we have some real deal conversations with the police. Now, traditionally, most black folks say, well, we got to say to the police. But we're going to have to really have some conversation if we're going to move this thing forward, because it can't all fall on the police.
I agree with you, Councilwoman. First of all, we have to reduce crime. When I took this job, I think that the number I remember reading was a person in the city of Riviera Beach stand a 1 in 80% chance of being a victim of a violent crime, and that's pretty high. And so the first thing that I said, we have to reduce crime. Now, the first thing I got to figure out is why so much crime? Why is there so much violent crime, so much shooting?
And that's the thing. And the thing about Riviera Beach is that, it's not like somebody stole somebody's purse. We're talking about violent crimes here.
Well, I can say this. I would say this. One of the reasons why we have to increase with community policing is to get the community, one of President Obama's 26 pillars again, is communicating with the public, all right, to interact with the public, which is why this town hall like this are good ideas. The Stop the Violence March we're doing on December 5th is a great idea. And we have to keep doing this. When I give you my phone number to the public and everybody I meet, the communication line is open.
And I appreciate that. And like I said, I wanted just to be able to introduce the fact that this is what we're going to start doing. And we had this conversation when you first got here about doing these type of things, because number one, people have to be comfortable with the police, and number two, we have serious questions that we want to ask the police. So we had this conversation, and we were going to go into trying to do things like this. Of course, the pandemic came, but that should not stop us still. We still got crime. We still need to address it. And I just want to be able to create some comfort between the public and the police, especially since, as I said before, the city of Riviera Beach is unique in its makeup of predominantly African Americans. It's unique in its black police chief, its black city manager. It is a unique, beautiful thing. And not saying that if it were a person who's white, that it would, it's just a different dynamic here. And given the history of our dealings with the police, we have the opportunity to make that look different now. to be able to, as I said before, one of the complaints is, know how to talk to people. When you're talking to people, know how to talk to them. Don't just, treat people and talk to people any kind of way because you are the police. That's the first step. So when we have these kind of conversations, then we can get into trying to figure out how we're going to reduce this crime. And then, like I said before, number two, how we're going to solve the crimes that have happened. And I know that you're on the same page, Chief. I can appreciate that. And in the interest of time, we're going to keep this conversation going. I appreciate the fact that you are not just doing some old school policing, that you are trying to be innovative in how you reach the city and the residents. I can appreciate that. Because, some police departments, this is old ways, and that's how we're going to do it. And I appreciate you bringing to the table those innovative and new things to be able, because we do have a new and a unique situation in this city. The way you police this city is not how you would police Palm Beach guards. It's totally different. So we need different, innovative, creative solutions to that. And I know that you can do that for the city, and I can appreciate it. Residents, you got one question to ask of the Chief of Police, one question, and we're going to go ahead and schedule our next meeting. Yes, ma'am.
I got one question, and it's something that Chief Osgood said. Thank you for your service. Thank you everybody for the service, okay? You stated that we are a busy city with limited resources.
That's correct.
What area of resources do you feel as if you are lacking in order to address our crime in the different aspects that this unique city brings about?
Just a few I can name is we can use better technology, software technology to help mapping system, to help pinpoint crime, to help map the targets. And that's a software. We also need a better mapping system for IA, internal affairs complaints, that will log our complaints and not get them.
Oh yeah, that's what I want to ask. I'm sorry, Ms. Graham.
That's okay.
Before I forget,
these were things that I wanted to know.
Make sure you address the issue about how you lodge complaints against police officers and how that process works. But I'm sorry, Ms. Graham, go ahead.
Okay. Because in your budget,
yes, ma'am.
Now these are critical things that I would expect for you to put forth in your budget. These are your tools in order to address these things here. You can talk about them, but you know what you need. So as a director, I'm going to make sure that I have my tools in order to help me to navigate in where I need to navigate at. Now, the next question is, are you implementing these in your budget?
Well, we're already out of the budget year, but yes, we have requested it, but you got to get the funding, and we also have to seek grant funding to get some of the things we're requesting. So, yes,
okay,
we
that's my
apply
question.
for grant funding.
Have you been resourcing or applying for the grants, for some of these grants to address this technology stuff, what you need?
We get plenty of grant funding, but you have to get the grant funding when it opened up for that particular product that you're seeking. If we're asking for anything with bulletproof vests or something, you have to wait until the Department of Justice open it up, and then you can apply for it. We can't just see an item we want and say, let me ask for grant funding for that item. You have to wait until it comes around, or some type of grant funding saying, now you may apply. And then they go with the rewarding system. They look at all the cities that requested this particular funds, and then they go with how they're going to reward it. They may reward it to another city versus this city, and so forth. We've been pretty blessed in the city of Riviera Beach. We get grant funding. We have had plenty of grant funding to help us out, such as body-worn cameras, LPR system, a lot of our real-time crime center. So we've had grant funding, but we still need more.
Okay, you made mention too about the bicycles. Where are these bicycles patrolling at in our city? Because I've never seen them. A lot of the residents say they haven't seen them neither. And you say you have officers that's on the bicycles?
Yes.
So where are they riding at?
Well, I can send them to your neighborhood for starters.
Thank you.
We only have 8 bicycles right now. We're gonna put in the budget, we put in the budget for 20 more. We will be purchasing 20 more bicycles. They patrol over in, Monroe Heights. They've been over in your area, Federal Gardens area. They've been over by, Ocean Mall in that area. Just throughout the city. Now, they don't just pick up the bicycle and just ride them around. They have to go to that community, park, ride around. They get in the parks and they ride around. So they out, but now, are they out every single day, 12-hour day? No, ma'am, they're not.
Okay, you said that you have 4 different officers in that zone. Okay, I know you have your commanders here. Each, under these commander officers here, is this the 4 officers that are under them that are patrolling these different zone areas that are in our communities?
No, ma'am. So the way that works is, let me give you, for an example, one zone. Let me call it, let's say, Monroe Heights. So one officer has that zone for his or her days on. When that officer is off those days, a new officer comes on, that officer has that zone for the other days while the other officers out. Now, the same thing, let's say that's the day shift officers. Then you get the night shift officer, exact same thing. So there's 4 officers, one at a time, in each zone in the city.
We need more visibility in our communities with the officers. That has been a constantly complaint. The lady that was here that had to leave, that was one of her questions too, as well as mine. So we do need more visibility in our communities, because why? That helps deter a lot of incidents that does go on. If you see that officer in that community, you can better see what we see. And then instead of putting this Ann on the hot spot, I have these officers patrolling in these areas. And they can pick it up. And they can see just what Miss Ann has seen over there. So what we're saying is, I don't know your roster about hiring the officers and stuff, but we do need more visibility with these officers in our neighborhoods. That will not just only help us, but help you solve a lot of things. This technology, what you were saying, okay, your grants, and I hope that you all keep searching for those. But you have to use what you have now in order to address some of these things here that are articulated in our neighborhood. And that's what we want solved, because we do love our police department. And I know that our police department love us too, but we want more visibility. For every action is a reaction. That's what I call de-escalation. So I don't expect for our officers to harm our residents, chokeholds or anything like that. But the service that should be provided is to keep Miss Ann safe over there. And the visibility, I see them in other neighborhoods when I'm out and about, and they just ride out all on their streets. So we can do the same thing.
It's valid points, ma'am.
And I want to say this, and we're gonna have to kind of close off now. We were supposed to be from 6 to 8, it's 9, so I'm not gonna repeat last night. This is not gonna happen. But I want to say this. It's really difficult when she's talking about, Miss Ann over here. It's really difficult for people, number one, to trust the police, just given the nature of African Americans and police, period. That's the first thing. Number two, nobody else has experienced the type of treatment black people have gotten from police. So you have to understand the perception that people have. So it's going to be very difficult for them to trust the police. We understand that there are, quote unquote, and I hate to use this terminology, but bad apples, in every organization. So you have this element in the police department that people, may know or may not know and may not trust. There's just things that when you're dealing with African American communities, and I'm not saying that Singer Island don't have crime either. I'm just saying that their history with the police has not been ours. Their story with the police has not been ours. So it is going to be, it's a unique situation here that we have to be able to cultivate, to have this conversation, to build this trust with the police department, because any black person that I know and you say police, it's a fear. I mean, that's just common. That's just the way it is. Police get behind me and my license straight, my tag is straight. Police get behind me, I'm fearful. Why? I've never been in jail in my life. I have never committed a crime. I've never been arrested. But the police come behind me, I feel frightened. And that should not be. But that's just the way it is, period. So I want to be able to have these conversations, with the police department, to be able to start working together. Because as I said before, I know you can't do it all. And I know that the police shows up when crime is being committed. So what's been going on before this? So we can all work together to get to the point where we can reduce crime in the city. And that's just that simple. But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to have to end this meeting because it is 9 o'clock, after 9, and I want to be able to do this again. So be prepared, Chief.
Please, I'm welcome. I would love to be here again.
Be prepared, because we're going to bring these same people that we had tonight back again, and we're going to talk about these same issues that we can be able to move forward and also be able to address some of these concerns of residents. We're tentatively scheduling our next town hall meeting for January. Now listen, you don't have to live in District 3 to come to the town hall, because we're talking about issues that are relevant to everybody who lives in the city. So I want the residents to come out. If you have questions that you want to ask police department, developmental services, you can call them or you can send it to my office. There's always a way, and there's always a way to figure it out and to get it done. So with that being said, I'm going to adjourn this meeting for tonight, but I'd like to thank everybody who came out, especially the residents. Thank you so much, Chief, and your officers for coming. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to having real conversations and bringing real solutions for the city of Riviera Beach as it relates to crime. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. Y'all be safe. COVID is not playing. Be safe. Enjoy your holidays, and we shall see you in January. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman.